Since reviewing the NiteAngel Stacker cage series, I have gotten so many questions regarding these cages and whether or not I'm getting a bunch of new hamsters or some different species of animals. So I'm going to be answering all of your questions in today's video. The first question is, are you getting 4 new hamsters? Which is a very good question because it does look like I have 4 enclosures behind me. But if you watched my cage review video, you would know that I talked about how these cages are connectable and that I actually wouldn't recommend purchasing them unless you're purchasing 2 or more to connect together. So realistically, I have only 2 cages behind me and they are connected side by side. So this bottom one here, this is one entire enclosure, and then this top one up here is one entire enclosure. So to answer your question, no, I won't be getting 4 new hamsters, but I will be getting 2 new hamsters. The next question is, what are the measurements of the NiteAngel cage? So one of these single enclosures is only 31.5 inches long and 17.7 inches wide. But because I do have these connected together, so it's not just one single cage, it is 2 cages connected together. It does give a total of 63 inches long by 35. Oh, hi. Sorry. For some reason, my brain shut off when filming this, and I decided to double the width of the enclosure, even though it didn't change at all. So it still would be 17.7 inches wide, not 35 inches. Which brings us to our next question. What's the total internal space offered by the NiteAngel Stacker enclosures connected? So a singular enclosure has 558 square inches of floor space. So when 2 are connected together, it gives you a grand total of 1,116 square inches of floor space. The next question is, why are you choosing to use this over your handmade enclosures? So I really am not choosing the NiteAngel enclosures over my DIY enclosures because I still am using one of my DIY enclosures. The one that I'm using still currently houses my Syrian hamster, Dipper. But as you may know, I previously had 2 DIY enclosures, so where did the second one go? So that DIY enclosure once held my past Syrian hamster Mabel as well as my past Chinese hamster Waddles, and unfortunately the bottom just was not varnished the same way as Dipper's DIY enclosure was, so it has just become super duper pea stained. And so once I was sent these enclosures, I did make the executive decision to just take apart that DIY enclosure and put it into storage. That way, if I ever decide I want to use it again, I can just rebuild it and replace the bottom with something new and actually varnish it properly. Or if I want to take it and use it for other builds in the future, I still can. But the differences between these enclosures really isn't a whole lot. The difference in floor space is a very small amount. These ones just have 36 inches less than my DIY enclosure. And another difference is the height. These only have 19.7 inches in height, whereas my DIY enclosure has 24 inches in height. The other thing that I'm kind of excited about is that they are glass and plastic all the way, so it just makes sanitizing for a new hamster just a lot easier and kind of gives you a little bit more peace of mind. That leads us into our next question. What species are you getting next? So this is a good question. And for right now, I have decided that I would like to put dwarf hamsters in the NiteAngel enclosures, and I'm going to stick to keeping a Syrian hamster in the DIY enclosure. Why, you may ask? Simply because of just the height difference in the enclosures. The DIY enclosure, I am able to put slightly more bedding in it. It also is wider, so it just is better for fitting like Syrian sized accessories. I'm sure I could probably have a Syrian hamster live fine in the NiteAngel enclosures, but for right now I've decided that I think I want to house dwarf hamsters in these enclosures. What exact dwarf species, I really don't have a preference. I may be considering a Roborovski, and I may be considering a hybrid dwarf hamster. Either or is fine to me. Do you want a male or female? So I really am not super picky about the different sexes. A female or a male is fine to me, especially when it comes to dwarfs, because I feel like there isn't too big of a difference between the two, whereas Syrian male and females are slightly different. Female Syrian hamsters just tend to be a little bit more crazy and harder to please. I don't really see that behavior in female dwarfs as much, but obviously each hamster is going to be different. But like I said, I don't have a preference. Are you going to buy a hamster from a breeder or rescue? So you may or may not know I don't have any local breeders to me. The closest ones are provinces away, and my last 2 breeder hamsters actually flew here from Toronto. It is a very long and expensive process, so I'm not planning to do it anytime soon, and I would like to adopt my next couple of hamsters, but I have nothing against ethical breeders. When you connect the cages, does the awkward line in the middle bother you? So when you do connect these cages together, the way that they connect, there is going to be a small kind of like I guess it's a line, a little border around it. It really doesn't bother me that much because once you fill these enclosures up with bedding, it's not a huge issue, especially you put accessories and everything on there. I don't see an issue with it. Obviously, I haven't housed a hamster in it yet, so I'm not sure are they going to start to chew on it. I'm more hopeful that a dwarf isn't likely to chew on it, whereas I feel like a Syrian would probably manage to want to chew on that little spot. But for me personally, it's not a huge issue right now. Where is the ventilation in the bottom cages? So the ventilation is located just at the top here with these mesh panels on each side. Some people may have issues with the amount of ventilation, but I really see no difference between having these type of enclosures or like having aquariums or bin cages in rack systems. The ventilation is really quite the same. And I've also never had ventilation issues with any types of aquarium styled enclosures. How do you clean the bottom enclosure? So the bottom enclosures do have these front opening doors, and they actually leave you quite a lot of clearance to be able to like stick your hands in there and clean everything. So I don't think I'm gonna have too many issues. Obviously, I will update you guys in the future once there's actually a hamster living in here for me to actually spot clean and do all that fun stuff with. What is the weight restrictions for the enclosures? So I haven't tested it out fully with all of the hamster accessories yet. As you can see, it's really not set up yet. But on NiteAngel's website, they do say that they have a 70-pound weight restriction, which I think 70 pounds is quite a lot. Okay, to be fair, when I saw this, I just assumed it was in pounds, but the cage, in fact, can hold 70 kilograms, which is 154 pounds. So even better. So there shouldn't be really any issues with putting heavy items in here. Would you be willing to do a comparison between these and the Bucat State enclosures? I really hope I pronounced their brand right. I don't have any plans on reviewing or getting those enclosures, but my best friend Emiology actually just recently received those enclosures to review. So if you are interested in looking at the comparisons between the two, which there actually is quite a big difference between the two, you can check out my review video on the NiteAngel cage stackers, and you can check out her video on the Bucat State enclosures as well. This next question is a really good one, and that's, would you own mice? I was getting a lot of questions asking if I was going to put different species in here, like mice, gerbils. I don't know what else I could really house in here, but the answer is no. And that simply is because I just don't have any interest in owning short lifespan social animals. Don't get me wrong, I love them, think they're adorable, would love to own them. But I already have long lifespan social animals, and they already are so much stress when it comes to bonding. So thinking about having to bond short lifespan social animals, I don't even want to have to think about having to do that all the time. Hamsters are like the perfect pet, in my opinion, because they don't get lonely and they don't want friends. So I don't have to focus on like, oh my gosh, I have to get another friend for my hamster because their friend just passed away, if that makes any sense. That's my reasoning. And the last question I wanted to answer is, how long does a cage last? How many years in your opinion? So this is a really good question, because a lot of the times people will look at a hamster cage that's a correct size and it's a really nice quality, and they look at the price tag and it's a little bit higher than they would expect, and they're shocked because it's for an animal that only lives 1.5 to 2 years. But in my opinion, I'm not thinking of that. Whenever I'm buying something for my hamsters that is expensive, like a new expensive wheel or hideout or cage, I'm not thinking that this is only going to last me 1.5 to 2 years. It's an investment to me, because I plan on continuing to always have hamsters. So many future hamsters are going to get use out of all of these items. So I will continue to reuse and sanitize my items for future hamsters, as long as the items stay intact and they don't break or become dangerous to the animal. So my cages and wheels last me years. I think I have my 11-inch Wodent wheel. I want to say I've had that for I want to say 7 years at the minimum. I've had that wheel for a long time, and it's still perfectly fine, and it's definitely worth the money. So I hope that could answer everybody's questions and everyone is a little bit less confused now. But yes, I will be eventually getting 2 new additions to the family. When, you ask? I don't have a timeline, unfortunately. It will happen when it happens. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this video, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!